Hi guys, Ian here. Welcome to part two of the Peter Ramage interview. For those of you who haven't seen part one yet, I recommend you looking at that and watching that before starting on this one. For those of you who have already seen it, we'd love to get your comments on what you thought of that, and then after watching this, what you think of this one below. And all it leaves me to say is, let's go and talk to Peter.
Correct, and I like to, and I've joked about to Mila, my demise at Palace was because of him, because he picked up 10 bookings. He was suspended for Ipswich away when I had a stinker, and I was dropped after that game, and it was only because Mila was suspended, and I didn't have my rock in front of me to keep me in check, and I didn't play into the remaining games in the playoffs, and I like to blame. We have a laugh tongue in cheek about it. I blame me.
Oh, well, I'm glad you can laugh about it, because I mean that's one of the questions. Is obviously that season, talking about the promotion season, the playoff season, you had 40 league appearances, and yet you didn't get to play in the playoff part.
Yeah, and that was that's the biggest heartache for me in my career, is that I felt that I'd done enough throughout the course of the season to allow one bad game, and me and Ollie didn't come to blows, but we argued over it. I felt I was unjust, that I was.
Sorry, Peter, was it Gabidon that was in your?
Gabs came in, Gabs came in, but that was the thing. Gabs, I mean, I was speaking to Gabs the other day. If there was one person to come in and take your place, and I knew when Gabs would come in that I wouldn't play again, because he was such a great footballer, such an underrated player, and he went on from strength to strength. He obviously went and played. Him and Damo, kind of formed an unbelievable partnership, and that run up, and then into the Premier League season. So, I supported Gabs. I was the first to go and give him a pat on the back. And then the first to congratulate him afterwards. I didn't have a problem with Gabs, and if there was one player that was to come in, I was so proud and pleased that it was him that came in. And who knows? I mean, he kept 3 clean sheets throughout the playoff. So I mean, how can you argue against that?
Did you get a bonus then?
Oh, I got a bonus. Still got me bonus, which was bought me my house back up in Newcastle, the bonus. But it was tough for me to take. But and Ollie kind of pointed out that Gabs came in and performed, but I just felt, and I argued my case, that the 40 odd games that I'd played previously, I thought I was allowed one bad game. I probably had a couple in amongst there, but over the season, I think I'd consistently shown that I could bounce back. But
you scored 4 more goals than Gabidon.
4 more goals, and I scored a goal. Me and Damo had a running bet going, and I still managed to score more goals than Damo, and he played more games than me. So it was. But I mean, I respected Ollie enough to take his point on board. I'd still, I like to think that the way that I had I was like a bear with a sore head throughout that playoff period. But I trained to make sure that if Gabs and that slipped up, then that I was ready to go in. And even the playoff final, it was heartaching for me to sit on the bench. And
well, let's go there now. Let's talk about the playoffs and that. Those 2 games in particular, the 3 games, the 2 legs for the Brighton. Now, in the first leg, obviously at home, Murray gets injured against his old team. What was the feeling in the dressing room after that game with him out?
Yeah, it was. First and foremost, we're just worried about him, because Muzz didn't go down for nothing. And obviously, I've personally gone through the situation that he was facing out twice. So, and he was my roommate. He was probably my best mate at the club. Still one of my closest friends even now. So, we were obviously worried about him. But then, obviously, we've just lost the Championship's top goal scorer in the most crucial time of the season. But we had in Big Aaron Wilbraham, a ready-made replacement, and Albie. Whilst he wasn't getting the goals, everybody goes that, but we don't underestimate what Albie brought to the club. He was unbelievable in that second leg. He rose to the occasion. Okay, he didn't get the goals, but his performance.
He was an athlete, wasn't he?
Yeah, Albie still playing now. 40-year-old.
He scored this season.
He scored against the Geordies in the FA Cup.
Of course it was. Newcastle.
He's salt and
40
pepper
years
S, you know, 40. I mean, I was the first to message him as soon as he scored. We were messaging, and again, you know, but he was such a valuable member of that squad without really contributing to in goals, because, you know, he was an experienced player. He'd played in the Premier League with Norwich. You know, he'd scored goals throughout his career in the Championship, and we had faith in Albie would step up to the plate, and he did. You know, okay, like I said, he didn't score the goals, but, you know, his performances allowed, you know, the Wilf to go and score the couple of goals. You know, I think if you watch the goal, Wayne Bridges obviously Mark and Wilf, but the two centre off, so I stuck on Albie.
We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do that now then. So, first game, we gutted obviously that we've lost Mazza, and you know, as you said, and he didn't realise at the time just how bad an injury it was, and then clearly the returns coming up, and all this madness before the game. Can you actually clear up what actually happened before the game?
Yeah, well, we were obviously Brian, the kit man, goes in the lead up to the game, a few hours before the game. He goes to set up all the stuff, and he'd gone down with a coach driver, and we'd had a pre-match meal just prior to that, and I think he might have had a bit of raw chicken or a bit of raw fish or something like that, and he's gone to the dressing room and, you know, got the ups and downs, and he's gone to the toilet and projectile vomited and, excuse the French, shat all over the place, and I think he'd try to clean it up and just made it an absolute...
And wrote Palisade shit on the wall.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrific, and I was one of the first off but Brian didn't realise. So Brian's obviously, like, I think he's come back to the hotel with the driver. The driver's tried to clean up, and he's just left it. Why, I don't know, but he's just left it. And I was one of the first ones off the bus, walked down, and I was one of the first at the dressing rooms, opened the door, and just the stench was it was like instant. Like, literally, you think of, you go into some pubs and you go into the toilet, like the toilets and pubs, and as soon as you open the door, oh my God, this was like times 10. It was incredible. And Ollie just went berserk. You walked into the shower room where the crime scene was, and it was everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I don't know if somebody had maybe seen it and tried to clean it and thought, nah, sod this, we're going to have a bit of fun, we're just going to spread it all over the place, or whether the coach driver just tried to clean it. But it was literally all over the gaff, and
really,
it riled Ollie up something, and it riled us up. You know, it disrupted our preparation, because now Ollie had gone up to the Brighton owners and, like, you've got to sort this out. So, you know, while we were all trying to get ready, or should have been getting ready, we're on the pitch waiting for this to all get cleared up. But I think it had more an adverse effect on Brighton, because Gus Poyet was absolutely fuming.
He was crestfallen. When you saw him on TV, it was like the blood was draining from his face, as if to say, this is all the ammunition they need. Look at Ollie's jumping around.
Well, we're driving into Brighton, into the stadium. I mean, you know, Brighton, it's one road in, one road out. But
again, this is another apocryphal story, or maybe you're just about to tell us it's true, that they send you all around the houses.
Well, it's kind of out the way a little bit. It's out of the town centre, but you drive all the way around. It's like you do like a spiral all the way. And I think it's only because it's one road. But we're driving past, and they've got Wembley 2013 flags flying. It's almost, I know obviously they'd beaten us 3-0 obviously at the Amex in the kind of the league
game, yeah.
The league game. So they were obviously brimming full of confidence. They were probably at that time more informed than us. So they were it was almost as if it had been a job done, the first leg, the 0-0. All he did to do was turn up. So we had that fuel going in, that these such and such is, I think they've done the job already. Nah, I just wait. And then you go into the dressing room. So now there's a double effect. So and Ollie's team talk was done. You know, it was done without him even having to say a word. And, you know, obviously the game, Jules made an incredible stop from Ashley Barnes.
Wow,
yeah,
what a stop.
And that, I think at that moment, we knew that we were going to win, Jules was, I think he was Player of the Year that year, if memory serves me right, or was it worldwide? But Jules was just, he turned up when needed. He made that save, and going into extra time, that just gave us that kind of little extra bit of energy to go and try and win. And obviously, Yala came on. Yala was similar to me. He'd been kind of dropped at the crucial time, and he came on.
I thought you meant in wing prowess.
Yeah. He was, well, Yala was, he was a game changer. And he lost a bit of form at probably the crucial time. You know, he suffered a little bit like me. He was out of the team, but you know, me and him were sitting next to each other, and before he went on, I was like, Yala, you're going to come on and you're going to make an impact. Because he was down that he'd missing out in these games. I was like, you're going to come on, you're going to make an impact. And that was kind of the video, you know, afterwards in the dressing room, that Yala was coming around, and I was like, that's what I said. I was like, you know, that's what I told you, Yala, you know.
And as you quite rightly pointed out, you know, you've got Wayne Bridge in between, and he's just gone. As soon as Wilf's just got in front of him, his head just went into his hands.
Oh no!
He knew what it meant.
Yeah, because I think it was the second half of extra time then as well, so there wasn't a lot of time left. And then, you know, Yala puts the cross of the century in for Wilf, who, you know, didn't score too many goals with his head, and it was actually a shock more to us that he's gone with his head than anything else. And you know, it was kind of fitting that the man who's, you know, Palace through and through got us through that game and into the playoff final.
And so, how much did the team know? You know, you guys obviously haven't been bought. Wilf would obviously have known about and been indoctrinated in him. But the rivalry, just how it's an odd rivalry. I mean, we'll all admit that. But just how much did you guys know, and when coming to the club about it? And then secondly, once you played in that game and the lead up to the game, did you start to get a feeling for how intense that rivalry is?
I didn't have a clue about him up until the first league game at Selhurst. Even in the week leading up to it, I didn't really grasp the magnitude of the game and what it meant to the fans. I played in Newcastle, Sunderland, Derby. I've grown up, so I know what that was like. So when kind of people were describing the rivalry, they described it like that. They said it's like Newcastle, Sunderland, it's like Liverpool, Everton, it's like Man United, Man City. It is fierce. So then it was probably the drive into the game. You know, the surrounding area of Selhurst was a little bit busier. It took a little bit longer to get to the stadium, but we were forewarned that. So, you know, you're leaving an hour earlier. And the first league game, obviously, I can't remember who it was. Somebody got sent off after 5 minutes of the first game.
It was only Dunk, with Lewis Dunk, wasn't it? I don't even think he lasted 5 minutes, did he?
No, he brought somebody through on goal, I think, wasn't it?
Straight through one of them. It might have been Wilbraham, was it? I don't know.
It might have been. No, I think it was Muzzer. Was it Muzzer or somebody? I mean, but this was the added spice to the game. Was it Muzzer was, you know, obviously ex-Brighton, and he got.
And they were cheering. Penalty. They were cheering that they'd crocked him. They're fans. They were delirious.
Yeah. And I mean, that added spice to the game, and Muzzer made me aware of it as well. But obviously, he went and scores the first. I think he scored from the penalty or scored something. Then he scores the header at the front post, and then we get a penalty in the second half. Muzzer's got the opportunity to score his hat trick, and he picks the ball up and gives it to Owen Garvin. And Muzzer, what you doing? He's like, I can't. He still lived in Brighton. I was like, I can't. If I've scored two. I can't score a hat trick against Brighton. I won't be able to see me, like, show me face. So he gives he gives up the opportunity to score his hat trick to Owen Garvin, and I think after that is when I really realised how big this game was. And then, you know, obviously we go down to the Amex in the return kind of fixture, and we get our backsides handed to us with a 3-0, you know, defeat down there, and we were awful that day. And then it was after that game that, you know, I first really experienced my kind of social media barrage of abuse. You know, all the Palace fans telling us, just because we'd lost games throughout the previous games throughout that season and nothing was said, but, you know, we're not getting, you know, death threats, but Me and Damo in particular, because we were poor that day. We were getting, the brunt of it, and then I realised, crap, this game does mean a lot to the fans, and both me and Damo had a kind of hiatus from social media after the game afterwards, sort of a few weeks afterwards, just because of. But that showed the sign of what the game meant to people, and
I know we are fickle fans. We're definitely fickle. So,
it's parcel of football. You have pundits go on a match of the day. You have pundits sitting in who they don't obviously go into severity, but it's the same thing. It's criticism. It's just different levels, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's why we live in somewhat of a free world. But it's part and parcel of football. You've got to be able to take it. If you can't take it, then you'll never last in this game.
That's very magnanimous of you. Well done. So, and one thing I did realise is that Clattenburg was reffing the second leg as well.
Yeah, Klatsos, Geordie.
And that must have been the only game we won with him reffing.
I have a bit of banter with him because he's from Newcastle. There's Michael Oliver.
Well, he did the first leg.
He did the first leg, I know. So that's exactly what I was saying. I was like, I've got two Geordies doing my games. How sort us out. They have the banter. I know. I referenced. We talked about my dad at the start of this, and so I had that respect for referees because I see what my dad went through. So. Them two in particular. I mean, I lived on the corner from Michael's mum and dad in Whitley Bay, so we kind of had the relationship. And Klatz is from Newcastle as well, so it was. I don't think he's very well liked amongst most Palace people, but for me,
well, he's not. But the thing is, Rebecca's on at NBSCN now, isn't he?
Yeah, with Rebecca Lowe.
Yeah, exactly. And she sent a tweet about him saying that she's converted him to chips and beans or something. And then she said, how many is it now? And he went 12 in a row. and you just think, oh.
I know, because actually I was speaking to Rebecca the other day because she's obviously a big Palace fan, and obviously she's stateside. She was one of the first people when I moved to Phoenix. She messaged us just it's good to see another Eagle over here on the States, and I was speaking to her the other day because she posted on her Instagram this British website that's got all the like all the chocolate mince pies and like the British-based food.
Wow.
And I was like, where is this site? Tell me, I need it. So we keep in contact somewhat through social media as well. And obviously I was taking the mick out of her.
Don't they in your local Walmart or anything have a Brit aisle? Because I know they do that in Florida.
Yeah, but it's flipping expensive, man.
It's ridiculously. Marmite is
correct. I mean, you got even just Branson pickles. It's like $10 or something stupid like that.
I'll send you some over. We'll talk later.
Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, the mother-in-law's just been on this morning. She sent us over a care package. My mum and dad sending me care package. It's but no, Rebecca's told me about this website, so I've got in contact already, and I'm going to try and get try and wangle some free mince pies and Cornish pasties.
You're not going to pay for them. You just want free ones.
I just want free. Hey, Shy Ben's getting out, as they say back home.
Shameless. Right. Okay. We'll quickly touch on the game that obviously got us up. The final. Again, you must have been crestfallen, but you were still part of the squad.
Yeah.
And then obviously. We got Kevin Phillips, nerves of steel. Wilf. I mean, let's quickly talk about Wilf. Just how good is he in your eyes?
He's world class for me. I think, and I mentioned to the guys yesterday, and it pains me to say this, but his career will stagnate if he stays at Palace.
I think we would all agree that. I think most Palace fans would agree with you there.
I mean, I'm a Palace fan as well. I don't want to see Wilf leave, but from like a professional standpoint, he's coming up to 27, 28 now. There's not going to be many opportunities for Wilf to go in and test himself at the next level, which I think his ability warrants. I think he deserves that opportunity. It didn't obviously happen for him at Man United. I think he suffered from. If Alex Ferguson had stayed one more year, I think Wilf might actually still be at Man United.
Yeah.
I think that was a big turning point in his career at Man United, that David Moyes had gone in and it just didn't work out for him. So now Wilf's at a stage where he's got himself to that point where he deserves this opportunity. I would love it for it to be Palace to get into the upper echelons of the Premier League and for him to test himself, on the European stage with Palace. But, is it going to happen?
Well,
More
once
than
we
likely
stop
it's not.
Liverpool winning the title after 2 games, we'll be in.
Yeah, but I mean, he is that good. The song "He's Too Good for You" really is. He is too good for us, I think. I think he's got now to a stage where he has to go and test himself, and if he's got aspirations, obviously at this moment, Newcastle are linked with him with all this Saudi money that potentially is coming in. It would be, as a Geordie, I would love it. Love it. To quote Keegan, I would love it.
I was just about to say exactly that. That was ironic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know, but it would be great for Newcastle, man. But for Will, he needs to go to one of the top 4, or he needs to go to Europe. He needs to go to Europe and play for, Borussia Dortmund's been talked about, even by
PSG for my money. PSG he'll go.
Yeah, he needs to go. He needs to go and try and test himself, and I think he'll regret it he'll not regret staying at Palace, but he'll regret not taking that opportunity.
Completely agree. And clearly he'll always be welcome back, and
correct.
You've probably found out. I think I can probably name on half of one hand the number of players that leave our club and don't get any respect from fans. And it does, unless you really, really don't deserve it, you'll get it. And I think you're right. I think times, unfortunately, with COVID, I think transfer fees, the market's just dropped, so we're not going to get anywhere near. But no, it's all relative. So whatever we would get for Wilf, I think we'd be quitted. Clearly, the club with the players that we're linked with, we're already looking for replacements as well, and I think that's a good thing as well. Get the replacement in before we let him go. Okay, so the final, we go on to win 1-0. Again, Jules pulls off a great save. Wilbraham pays the full 120, I think. And as you say, everyone puts a shift in, and there's that iconic footage of you and Damo. Now,
it was.
What was going on? What was going on there? I mean, that was such a great thing to see.
It was. Do you know what it is? We neither of us knew the cameras were there. We were one of the first 2 to go up the Wembley Walk, go along, get our medals. Everybody's lifting the trophy up. Me and Damo have done it, and we just walked off. Everybody's still up on the, up on the kind of the podium, so to speak. And me and Damo, I think, are on our own, just sitting down, and we've walked off, and Damo's just sat down. And I think the sheer emotion of 120 minutes, then the fact that I don't think he'd won a promotion, or he's won maybe a couple of promotions, but not to the magnitude of what had happened at that day. He just broke down. And I was just there. It was just, one of them just ironic moments that, and for me, Damo's still, again, one of my best mates in life, not just in football. And he just broke down. He was like, I can't even remember what we talked about, but it was just 2 mates having a conversation. You could replace the red and blue jerseys with a couple of white T-shirts or whatever, and it would have just been the same emotions that, I was just there for a mate who was, feeling a little bit vulnerable, and obviously got broadcasted all on the screens, and I didn't even know about it until after the game. My mum gave me a big hug and was in tears, and she was like, I don't know what you laughing, what you crying for? And she was like, you know what it is? I'm crying more at that moment than the game, and the fact that you got promoted, because she knew what Damo meant to me, and it was just it's become a kind of a symbol of that kind of group. I think that it was just 2 mates just having an emotional moment that got kind of captured without us even knowing that.
It's fantastic. It was fantastic, and I've got to say, it probably epitomises the character of person and individual you are, that, along with obviously your playing career with us, is probably what ingratiates you to us so much, and it's why you're inundated with us all the time, even though you've flown thousands of miles to try and get away from us. You'll never be able to do it.
I know there's a part which I'm trying. I mean, I'm trying to set up a Newcastle fans, but there's a pub, there's a Liverpool pub, there's a Chelsea pub, there's a Man City pub. I'm trying. There's a guy over the stateside that we're trying to start up, as I'm trying to start up a Newcastle one. But the reason I love Palace probably more than most clubs, take Newcastle out of it. It's the
Yeah,
club
sure.
that, yeah, you know, I've got biggest affiliation is because of the way everybody treated me. And I said it yesterday. It wasn't just the players; it was the people off the field. You know, Jane Sanderson that works at the club. She looked after my wife and my kids whenever they came to the games. You know, the reverend that came in every week. We had a strong. You know, whilst I'm not a religious person by any stretch of the imagination, he was brilliant. You know, we had the guys in the front office who, you know, looked after us, Christine and Carl. You know, even down to Ben Garner when he was working in the youth and then progressing into the first team. Gary Izzard. There was just good people at the football club who cared about Palace, but also cared about the players as well, which is why, you know, it's a club that, you know, I love, and every time I have an opportunity to speak to you guys or anybody, I'm always trying to make that effort, because these are the people that, you know, help me enjoy my time more than any others probably in my career.
Well, good. So Londoners aren't all that bad, are they?
No, you're not. That's the thing. We have this north and south divide, but, you know, and whilst, you know, I do. It was, for me, there wasn't a world south of the River Tyne. When I left, it was I found out that, you know, the Cockneys aren't that bad. Although we're having problems with one Cockney at Newcastle, but not all Cockneys are bad.
Right. Okay. So we go up, and then you sign a 2-year contract extension.
Correct.
I think. But then in September 13, you were allowed to join Barnsley. What happened now?
Yeah, I again kind of somewhat fell out with Ollie over it. The first game of the season, we played Tottenham at home. Ollie had brought in a couple of players, and obviously the defensive department, and I wasn't even on the bench for the first game, and I'd done all right over pre-season, played a lot of the games, and he put one particular player on the bench, and I kind of felt disrespected by it. The guy wasn't fit. I personally didn't think he warranted their position there. I mean, obviously, I was devastated first and foremost not to start, but it was Damo and Gabs who were the partnership, and I had no problem whatsoever. They were identified as the number one partnership. Fair enough. So I kind of fell out with Ollie over it, but on the bench the next couple of games, played Bristol City in the Carling Cup. We got beat. And it was a game, it was a proud moment for me because I was made captain. Ollie made me captain, but I was playing with all the kids. And I just had a feeling that I wasn't going to make the 25. So Ollie rang me again on transfer deadline day and was like, you're not going to make my 25. I'm going to go with, and I love Paddy to bits, but he put Paddy in and Paddy wasn't even fit. So, and there was no sign of him getting fit. I just felt, I felt a little bit disrespected by it. And whilst I had the respect, you know, I respected Ollie's decision. He's the manager. He was paid to make them decisions. I just felt that, you know, I warranted the opportunity. I'd worked me nuts off the season before to have the opportunity to try and play in the Premier League again. And I was coming up to 28, 29. Knew that, you know, time was maybe not going to give me the opportunity to play in the Premier League again. And I was given basically a couple of hours to try and find a move, and my wife had just by this time had our second child, so she was moving back up home for her to be with the family to help with the kids. So Barnsley came on the phone. I had a couple of other options, and Barnsley a couple of hours down the road from Newcastle. I thought, you know, why not? And I love my time at Barnsley, but it was just probably for me, they were a struggling championship team. And I felt that I should have, but I didn't have the time to wait. You know, like I said, Ollie rang me on transfer deadline day, and I had a couple of hours to try and, you know, figure out with my agent and move. And Barnsley was geographically the club at the time, which, you know, suited me as a family man better than any others. Okay,
so you were on Barnsley on loan for the season, and then clearly you left. Full stop. And you went to Kerala Blasters.
Yeah. Well, I kind of.
And so where are Kerala Blasters?
Well, they're in India. India. So, but this is how it came about, because obviously I spent that
in a curry house or something.
No, well, this is the thing. I went obviously to Barnsley the first year on loan. I'd signed obviously the 2 years. Came back, started pre-season. Tony Pulis by now was the manager at Palace, and I had a great relationship with Tony. Obviously, it didn't end well for him. And Neil Warnock came in, and I went to Barnsley again for a second year on loan. And it was after that second year, it was Julian's testimonial game at Selhurst. So I came down and I'd went out in London with Damo before the game, and we found a rooftop bar and went for a spot of lunch and ended up having a couple of cocktails. We turned up for a kickabout, for Julian's game. I'm not proud of myself, but we were a little bit worse for wear, but we had a lot of fun. And it was then on the train back after the game that Peter Taylor was speaking to Steve Parish at the match and was like, have you got any players that are you're releasing? I'm about to take over a team in the Indian Premier League at Kerala that I need some good honest pros. And Steve Parish, mentioned myself, and on the train back up from Jules' testimony, I got a phone call from Peter Taylor to ask if I fancied a little jaunt over to India, and I was 32 at the time, and I thought, you know what it is, why not? It was the first time money came into play. What they were offering me was financially more than I was potentially going to earn. In 4 months in India, I was going to earn potentially more there than I was in a year in maybe League One or League Two, which was probably where I was going to be looking at. And all my friends had done a bit of traveling throughout their time. They'd been all over the world. They'd done all this, backpacking and all that. And I thought, well, I was never going to go to India. It was never a country that I identified as a vacation place. So I thought, why not? And I enjoyed it.
Was that a culture shock, though?
Yeah, massively. I thought moving from Newcastle to London was a culture shock. Move to the other side of the world and go to India.
So whereabouts in India were they based?
So Kerala Kochi's the city. Kerala's the kind of the province that was. It's right on the south of India. As far south as you could possibly get, and it's absolutely stunning part of the world. Jane Sanderson, I talked about before. She had a lot of friends in India, so she gave me kind of a brief rundown of what to expect. Told me a few places to go within Kerala to go and visit, and I absolutely loved it. It's a stunning country. I mean, there's the rich and then there's the poor, and there's nothing much in between. The poor is something that my eyes will never be able to get take away what I've seen. Some of the poverty that that happens in India is incredible. But then you have the beautiful parts of it, which it's like I said, it's probably one of the most stunning parts of the world that I've ever come across. And I love the football, but I also love the country too.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I've just noticed the time. I said to you before that this is only going to be about half an hour, 40 minutes, and we're
I'm not bothered about that, mate.
An hour and 20 into it. I'm sorry.
Not bothered. No, don't worry about that. I've got my time's yours today.
Okay. Well, listen. You spend your time at Kerala, and then you come back. You come back to Coventry, and then within a couple of months move on to Leyton Orient. Now, you mentioned playing Brisbane Road earlier, but so it must have been a memorable part of your career. But you were only there for like 4 weeks.
No, I was at Coventry for about 4 weeks. I was at Leyton Orient for a couple of months.
A couple of months.
I came back from India the back end of would have been middle of November, end of October, middle of November, and so I had kind of 6 weeks of relaxing and chilling, and I went to Coventry. Is my only regret in my career, that I went to a club that was pushing for the League One, but I went there knowing that I wasn't going to play. I was Tony Mowbray was the manager, and he was upfront and honest with me and absolutely brilliant. I was basically told I was only going to get 4 games, and how I did in them 4 games we're going to see, because they were bringing in 2 young kids, Jack Stevens, who was at Southampton and now a first team player at Southampton, and Bailey Cargill, who was from Bournemouth. 2 young centre halves were coming in the middle of February. That I was only going to get a couple of games, and if I did well, it was going to make it harder for them to play. But I wasn't fit. I wasn't ready to play, and I went in the beginning of January for a week's training, having tried to keep fit, but you can't. It's hard to keep fit when you're not playing and not training. I was keeping fit on my own. So then 4 weeks came and went. My time at Coventry wasn't a memorable one, and Kevin Nolan was the manager at Leyton Orient, and Kev had just taken over the reins. He was a player manager, and I think he had just suffered an injury, somewhat of an injury crisis. Asked if I'd come down, and Kev is the player that we talked about. I'd come across, played against many a time, and didn't really know him as a person, but spent half an hour on the phone to him and loved what he had to say about the place, and went down and had a good couple of months down there. It didn't end. We were in the playoffs and a lot of things were going off the field. That Kev came and went as a player, then as a manager, and then there was a lot of things going off the field. But we had a good group there, and we just missed out on the playoffs by I think a point or two, and it was disappointing. But I enjoyed my time there, and I was in talks to sign permanently. We were talking, but again, there was there was an owner there who was more volatile than a volcano, and it just didn't sit right. So that
followed your instincts.
Yeah, I did, and I went into the summer with a lot of uncertainty, and I actually got a phone call from Gary Boyer, who was the manager at Blackpool then. Andy Heston-Tyler became the manager of Leyton Orient, so I was talking to the two. Hesse was trying to get me to come down. I wasn't having any of it. Gary Boyer rang and asked us if I wanted to come down for a week's training with a game at the end of it. Put the phone down to him, and then I got a phone call from Mark Bircham, who I'd worked with at QPR, who was out here in Phoenix, Arizona, literally an hour and a half after, like I said, after put the phone down.
Wow, that was fateful, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, but I gave Gary Boyer my word that I was going to go down. So I rang him up and I just said, listen, after this week's trial, I'm kind of going to need a decision because I have this opportunity to go out to America, to Arizona. And he's like, well, why are you even ringing me back? Why aren't you on a plane? I was like, well, I've given you my word. I'm just, letting you know this is what could happen. He's like, don't even get in the car. He said, ring Birch back up. Get yourself out to America. He said, Phoenix, Arizona is a little bit more glamorous than Blackpool Beach. So I'm forever grateful.
Maybe not at the minute. I'll tell you, it's 28 degrees here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's I'm sitting here at 11:30, and it's 100 degrees here. So whatever that is. But no, I mean that I had so much respect for Gary Boyer to say that he could have been awkward and said no. I've got my plans, but he gave me the opportunity to come out here. I came out to Phoenix, and I came out for a 10-day trip. I told my missus I was coming out for 10 days, and I ended up staying for 4 months.
Well, I was just about, that was going to be my next question. How easy or hard a sell was that to your wife? Because obviously it's a massive thing with the kids. They're just about to get into school, I guess, at this time, or actually in school.
Yeah.
And American football is still on the up, isn't it? So there's still no guarantees there. So because you came over as a player, didn't you? Yeah,
I went over as a player 2016, July 2016. I came out here, like I said, for a 10-day trip and ended up signing an 18-month contract. And my wife came out here for in that first period in 2000, because obviously our season out here runs kind of February or March through till October, November time. So we have a calendar season and not, the traditional seasons like European football. So she came out the back end of the year to see what Phoenix was like. She enjoyed it, enjoyed her holiday. But then 2017, it was the last year, or it was it ultimately turned out to be my last playing year. And my wife stayed in England with the kids and came out for 2 or 3 holidays. My family came out, but I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. I didn't know whether I was going to get another year or whether I was going to retire or what I was going to do. So that uncertainty, it's okay doing it in England, driving a couple of hours down the road, but when you're a 11-hour flight over the Atlantic is a little bit different. But she allowed me to come out here to play and be on my own, which she smiled through gritted teeth at what I was getting up to. But I fell back in love with football, if I'm brutally honest with you. And it was a time where the time at Coventry, the time at Leyton Orient, I'd fallen out of love with the game and I was ready to
Yeah.
retire, to be brutally honest with you. But coming out here kind of gave me a renewed love for the game. And I mean, Phoenix here is an incredible. I left at the end of 2017 and retired. But when the phone call came to come back out here, she was one of the first people to say, let's do it as a family. And, they're here with me now. And kids are in school enjoying it. She's got her own little group of friends that she goes and, socializes with. So it's, like I said, I'm sitting here, it's 11:30 and it's over 100 degrees already. So it's not a bad place to live.
Oh, that's fantastic. So clearly, the club changed its name, didn't it? And now you're assistant coach.
Yeah.
Well, let's call it what it is, assistant manager.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
keep it old school.
do you have to do the same badges, the similar badges that you would have done over here?
I've done them over here. I've done all my badges when I was playing. It was coaching was always something I knew that I wanted to try. That I was going to try and get into after football. It was something that I wanted to do. So I began my coaching badges when I'd done my first cruciate or second cruciate, sorry, at QPR. I began my B license. I completed my A license by the time I was, I think I was 30, 31. I'd done it actually with Paddy, Mealy, and Gabs. We all done our badges together. So when I retired, I went back and I began straight away at Newcastle's academy. My career was ended without really any thought. I landed on the Thursday after being released here at Phoenix in November 2017, and I got a phone call on the Friday to say, will you come into the academy? We want to talk to you about a potential position. And I had done my first training session on the Monday at Newcastle. I was, I joined the academy on a part-time basis with one of the teams, and I was working in the morning with the 23s, learning the role, learning how to coach, and then the evening times I had the under 13s with another lad. So it was my decision to retire was kind of taken out my hands because I just fell in love with coaching. So
it seemed very much as though it's a natural progression for you. It wasn't enforced upon you or anything along those lines. It's just something that you were essentially born to do.
Yeah, and I kind of, when I really fell in love was when I was at Palace doing my badges. Ben Garner and Gary Izzett was obviously working at the youth team at the time, and even now to this day, I still, Ben's one of my mentors. I still speak to him about coaching aspects and managerial stuff, and sitting picking their brains when we're going through the licenses. Was really inspiring. That's what I wanted to do. And then when I moved to Barnsley, I had to you had to do your hour sessions and things like that. I was working on in a night time at Barnsley's academy, and I just got a real passion for it and a real love for it. So it was when the decision to come to work for Newcastle was offered to me. I was like, yeah, 100%, why not? And then ended up being out here as the assistant.
So you're now over there as assistant. You've got your badges. Are you happy with that, or do you actually want to manage a club at some stage?
I don't know. I enjoy my role I have here. I'm.
Who's the manager there?
So it's an American guy called Rick Shantz. He had a really good college career, but he had more knee surgeries than me throughout his career, and became like a school teacher, etc. But he's a big figure in Arizona soccer. He's got a lot of knowledge of the area of the state. He's from Arizona. He's a Tucson boy, which is 2 hours down the road from here in Phoenix. And he was the assistant manager. Frank Yallop, when I first came over, was the manager. Frank was obviously the ex-Ipswich fullback.
Yeah.
Won the MLS 2 times over here as a really well-respected coach. And Rick, when Patrice Carteron, who was a French coach, my last year manager, left, Rick was given the interim role. When I came out here in July, we ended up going on to win the Western Conference, get to the USL Cup final, got beaten in the final, and then last year we won the Western Conference. We won the regular season, which was our number one target. We won 20 games. We won 20 games on the trot, which was a record that still even Liverpool couldn't beat. But Rick's got a lot of ideas of how the club's to be built. And I'm going to transition, from my assistant role into somewhat of a dual role working. We just got our academy status, which is massive for us, which is going to try and become, similar to academies over in Europe. So I'm going to start to work or get heavily involved in that. And it's just
maybe do a tie-up with us back here with our academy.
Well, I mean, I speak. That's the thing. I speak with Paddy. I speak with players who are now coaches at other clubs. We're forever looking for talent to bring over. We've got a lad who came out of Liverpool's under 23s, Corey Whelan. He signed for us last season. We've just brought Sam Stanton in, who is playing at Dundee United in Scotland. We actually beat a couple of championship clubs in England to Sam's signing, which was a huge coup for us.
Wow.
We've got Jack Barmby, who's the son of Nick Barmby. Jack came through the Man United youth teams. He was at Leicester. So, we've got some really good players here. We brought a lad from the German second division, Rufat Dadashov, who's, a big, powerful centre forward. So we're getting we're bridging a lot of our ownership group. One of our owners, Berkut Bakai, his family owned Galatasaray, who have got links with Galatasaray. So we've got a kind of a pipeline through there. One of the other owners, Alex Chang, who's our majority owner, he's just sold Nice to the British-based guy. So Alex has got some links with other clubs as well. So everything from when I came over, it was Arizona United. We were training on a park pitch, training out of 2 apartments that were basically converted into dressing rooms. We've now got our own facility where construction begins on the 1st of August for our own purpose-built facility that's going to have 6 football fields, an AstroTurf pitch. A new stadium's going to be built there. It's got a real progression here to hopefully the end goal is to try and get in the MLS, and everything that we're doing up until then is going to be MLS standard.
Oh, it sounds fantastic, mate. I wish you the best of luck, and obviously we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep tabs on your progress along that way.
Yeah, and just to go back to what you were saying, I mean, this is kind of, I have a short, medium, and end-term goal, and this is my short-term goal, is to try and help build a legacy here. But I do have aspirations, to coach in the Premier League. Management, I'm not 100% sure on yet. I'm still not sure whether that's the road I want to go down, but I want to coach in the Premier League. I want to potentially coach it.
So your intention is to come back at some stage then?
Yes, it is. It is. But again, my aspirations may change as time goes on. Hopefully we become an MLS. I want to coach in the MLS. I have all these dreams, and how they transpire, I don't know how it's going to go, but that is a goal of mine, is to come back to England and coach in the Premier League.
And at least it's unlike a playing career. I mean, even though your playing career was 13 or so years, wasn't it? Which is a good playing career, but that pales into insignificance when you look at the likes of Roy Hodgson and Warnock and everyone else. You're not limited by any sort of timelines anymore.
No,
I guess for someone like yourself and with a young family, it's probably more about the kids' education and making sure that they're settled and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, the school's great over here. The kids are thriving. They love how they don't have to wear a school uniform every day. They can wear what they want. But I mean, from a family standpoint, we might not get this opportunity. It's a different part of the world with a different culture, a different lifestyle. I mean, I don't wear a pair of jeans. I'll go walk around in my shorts and flip-flops 365 days of the year.
Don't stand up quite yet, will you?
Yeah, but it's literally it's an opportunity for us to try something new over here. I might, if I leave here, the opportunities might never come for me to try this again. So why not make the most of it while we're out here? And part of being out here for me as a young coach is that I can kind of learn on the job. There's me and the other lad who's my assistant, Blair, who's the assistant I work alongside, Blair Gavin. Blair's younger than me, but we're on a similar kind of timeline in terms of our coaching career. So we're learning, but we're in an environment where our owners know that. So if we make mistakes, we're not going to get punished for them, because we know that it's part of a plan to kind of progress. And if you don't make mistakes, then you'll never learn. So they're really supportive for that, in that respect for us.
That's fantastic. That really is good. Okay, all right. So let's wind this up then. So that's pretty much your career from start to where you currently are.
We talked about it being short, but it's
listen, we'll just make 5 episodes out of it. It's fantastic. It's great stuff, and we'll get you on next week. So career highlights for you. what are your abiding memories of the time that you had at Palace?
Oh, it's a good question. The Middlesbrough game, scoring the goal, was a highlight for me because there was a lot of things that went on in that day. You know, obviously me was vindication of my injuries against them, and then scoring. But scoring at the Homestead end, I really enjoyed that. A game I really enjoyed was we went up to Hull and we drew 0-0. We got absolutely battered. We went up with Ollie.
I can relate with that because it's probably like the Alamo.
It really was, and Ollie tried this new formation. It was all-out attack against the whole team that were riding high, and me and Damo, Amelia, and Jules were just like, "I'm going to set an Ollie away." You know what I mean? Give us 5 minutes break. But for me, the one memory that stands out more than anything is the actual promotion party after the Wembley. You know, it was with all the owners. You know, the two Steves and Martin Long were there. You know, I had Jim Piddock, obviously the actor who's become a close friend. The whole staff, you know, the owners put on an unbelievable party, and everybody celebrated because everybody contributed to us getting promoted. And that, you know, Steve took us out to the nightclub after the party had closed. Steve was like, "Nah," he got all the taxis, took me out to the nightclubs, and then, you know, we ended up leaving the nightclubs and going for breakfast, and then we carried on the Sunday, you know. But that after party was probably the favourite moment because, like I talked about before, everybody contributed to us getting promoted, and it was just so nice to share the achievement of the, you know, the 14 guys that done it on the pitch, to share it with everybody that was everybody that was there behind the scenes. It was probably the highlight.
So, and also, do you, I mean, I think it's quite evident that you keep in contact with a number of people, but are you in contact with a lot of them still, or?
Yeah, I am. It's funny, I talked about this the other day. It's probably the one. Footballers come and go. When you know, we talked about it. You know, you meet players and they're in your minute. You're in your life 1 minute and out your life next. And whilst I don't speak to them, you know, every day, every week, every month, we're always in contact. You know, I still speak to Muzz on a regular basis. Damo, I spoke to the other day. Me and Gabs had a Zoom. We Zoomed each other. I think it was just the back end of last week. I mean, we talked to each other. You know, I get the odd text from Dougie every now and then, and you know, Steve Parish on social media I speak to every now and then. I do. It's probably the one club where I speak to the players and the staff more than any other club that I've been at. And I think it was just, we had some sort of internal bond that's kind of united us together. But you know, Paddy's obviously involved in the academy. I'm going to try and set up a call with Paddy with obviously everything that's going on over here to see how he does things. But you know, I speak to a lot of the guys still. You know, we joked about Albi scoring against Newcastle, dropping a text about it. It's just Johnny Williams came up to Sunderland. Obviously, went on loan at Sunderland.
Yeah.
Went and met Johnny a couple of times. It's just a club that we grew close. And you know, whilst we might not speak to each other on a regular basis, we still speak to each other enough to be able to stay in each other's lives. And it's
and do you still keep an eye on the fixtures and the scores?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you know, it's the second result I look for after the Newcastle result. And you know, whenever the Palace games are on here over, you know, obviously on NBC, it's always tune in and watch them. And I'll do that for, you know, until they put me 6 foot under.
Well, listen, I've taken up more than enough of your valuable time. Thank you so much for this interview, and thank you for agreeing.
No, thanks for asking. It's been great. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And it just leaves me to say, Peter Ramage, you're definitely a massive hero. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it, Ian.